When she saw me at school, my granddaughter asked, "Why does mommy say you're evil?" When the teacher called me up for the surprise tribute, she didn't know where to hide her face. "Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached." At my age, I thought I was past being blindsided by life. After 65 years of living, working, and surviving, I figured I'd seen it all. But nothing prepared me for what happened that Thursday afternoon at Oakwood Elementary. "Grandma Patricia, why does mommy say you're evil?" Those innocent words from my 8-year-old granddaughter Emma hit me like a physical blow. We were standing in the school hallway, surrounded by colorful artwork and the buzz of children getting ready for the Grandparents' Day celebration. I'd been so excited when the invitation arrived in my mailbox, addressed specifically to me, though I suspected Emma had secretly added my name to the class list. "What did you say, sweetheart?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. Emma looked up at me with those big brown eyes, my eyes, though Claire would never admit it. "Mommy told Daddy that you're evil and selfish." "What does that mean?" "You don't look evil." I forced a smile, though my heart was shattering. "That's just grown-up talk, honey. Sometimes adults say things they don't really mean when they're upset." Emma seemed to accept this explanation, but I couldn't shake the words. Evil. Selfish. After everything I'd sacrificed, this was how my daughter saw me. I hadn't expected Claire to be at the school. She worked full-time at the marketing firm and rarely attended daytime events. But there she was, frozen in the doorway of Emma's classroom, her face draining of color when she spotted me. "Patricia. What are you doing here?" Her voice was tight, controlled. "Emma invited me for Grandparents' Day," I said simply, not wanting to get my granddaughter in trouble. Claire's jaw clenched. "I see." Before she could say anything else, Emma's teacher, a cheerful woman in her 30s, approached us with a smile. "Mrs. Mitchell. I'm Ms. Sanders. I'm so glad you could join us today." "Thank you for having me," I replied, hyper-aware of Claire's glare. "Actually," Ms. Sanders continued, "we have a special surprise. Emma told us you were a nurse for 40 years, and we'd love to honor you during our presentation today." Claire's eyes widened in alarm. "That won't be necessary." "Oh, but we insist." Ms. Sanders beamed. "The children have prepared something special for all our grandparent guests." Emma was so excited about her grandmother, the healthcare hero. Claire looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. As the classroom filled with grandparents and the occasional parent, I took a seat in the back row, not wanting to antagonize Claire further. She positioned herself at the opposite side of the room, checking her phone and pointedly avoiding eye contact with me. 40 years of nursing, mostly in the emergency room. 40 years of night shifts, missed holidays, and bone-deep exhaustion. All to give Claire a better life than I'd had. And for what? To be labeled evil by my own daughter. When Robert died of a heart attack at 37, Claire was only 6. Suddenly, I was a single mother with a mortgage, a child to raise, and barely enough savings to cover the funeral costs. I took on double shifts, worked holidays for the extra pay, found the cheapest reliable daycare I could afford. I did what I had to do to survive, to ensure we both survived. Ms. Sanders' voice pulled me from my thoughts. "We'd like to recognize a special guest today." Patricia Mitchell worked as an emergency nurse for over 40 years, saving countless lives while raising her daughter as a single mother. "Emma, would you like to present your grandmother with the certificate?" The pride on Emma's face as she walked toward me with a hand-decorated certificate almost made up for the humiliation on Claire's. Almost. "I love you, Grandma," Emma whispered as she hugged me. Over her shoulder, I caught Claire's expression, a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and something else. Something that looked almost like fear. What was she afraid of? That I'd tell Emma the truth about our past? About how hard it had been? About her father? As the celebration continued, I felt Claire's eyes on me constantly. When parents and grandparents mingled over punch and cookies afterward, she intercepted me before I could join the group. "We need to talk," she hissed, pulling me toward the empty hallway. "Now." The hallway was eerily quiet compared to the cheerful celebration inside the classroom. Claire crossed her arms, her body tense as a coiled spring. "Why are you here?" she demanded. "Emma invited me," I repeated, keeping my voice steady. "She brought the invitation to my house last time your neighbor watched her." Claire's eyes narrowed. "So Martha was in on this too?" "Great. Don't blame Martha." "She was just being kind," I said, feeling a familiar weariness settle over me. How many times had we been here before? How many conversations had started with accusation and ended with silence? "You had no right to come here without asking me first," Claire said. At 65, I'd learned when to push and when to yield. This wasn't the time or place for a confrontation. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just wanted to see my granddaughter." "Well, now you've seen her," Claire replied coldly. "And made sure everyone knows what a self-sacrificing hero you were." The injustice of her words stung. "I didn't ask for any recognition, Claire. The teacher planned that without my knowledge." "Right." Her disbelief was palpable. "Just like you never wanted recognition for working yourself to the bone and making sure I knew how hard everything was." Before I could respond, Emma bounded into the hallway, her face glowing with excitement. "Mommy! Did you see me give Grandma her certificate? Ms. Sanders said I did a great job." Claire's expression softened instantly as she turned to her daughter. "You were wonderful, sweetheart. Can Grandma come home with us for dinner?" Emma asked, looking between us hopefully. The tension in Claire's shoulders returned. "Not tonight, honey. Grandma probably has plans." I forced a smile, unwilling to contradict Claire in front of Emma. "Another time, perhaps. Thank you for inviting me today, Emma. It meant a lot to me." Emma hugged me tightly. "Promise you'll come to my ballet recital next month? I'm going to be a butterfly." Before I could answer, Claire cut in. "Emma, go get your backpack. We need to head home." Once Emma was out of earshot, Claire turned to me. "Don't make promises to her that you won't keep." The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. "I have never broken a promise to Emma," I said quietly. "No, just to me," Claire replied. Over and over again. There it was, the root of the resentment that had poisoned our relationship for decades. In Claire's mind, I was the mother who had chosen work over her, who had missed school plays and parent-teacher conferences, who had been too exhausted on rare days off to play or engage. "Claire," I began, "there's so much you don't understand about those years." "Save it," she cut me off. "I'm not interested in another round of 'poor Patricia had it so hard.' We all have challenges. The difference is how we choose to handle them." My heart ached at her dismissal. If only she knew the truth about her father's gambling debts that I discovered after his death, about the second mortgage he'd taken out without my knowledge, about the threatening calls from collectors that had kept me awake at night. About how every extra shift I worked was one step closer to giving us security and freedom from Robert's mistakes. But I'd never told her. I'd protected her from the harsh truth about the father she idolized, whose memory she clung to while blaming me for his absence. "I'd like to see Emma more," I said instead. "Please, Claire. She's my only grandchild." Claire's expression hardened. "I need to think about it. The last thing I want is for her to get attached and then be disappointed when you're too busy or too tired to show up." The unfairness of her words left me speechless. I had retired 5 years ago specifically to be available for Emma, but Claire had systematically limited our time together. "Let me know when you've thought about it," I finally said, recognizing that pushing harder would only make things worse. As Claire walked away to collect Emma, I stood alone in the hallway, surrounded by children's artwork depicting happy families, mothers, fathers, grandparents, all smiling and holding hands. Simple drawings that represented everything I had lost. Back at my small 2-bedroom house, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, the afternoon's events replaying in my mind. The walls felt emptier than usual, the silence more profound. On the refrigerator, held by a butterfly magnet, was the only photo I had of Emma, taken 2 years ago at a rare family gathering. Her smile was radiant, missing front teeth giving her that perfect childhood charm. I had tried so hard to be there for Claire. I had worked myself to exhaustion providing for her, making sure she had opportunities one never had, dance lessons, summer camps, good schools in safe neighborhoods. I'd put every spare penny toward her college fund, gone without new clothes or haircuts for myself, skipped meals when money was tight. But children don't see the sacrifices. They see the empty chair at the school play, the missed bedtime stories, the exhausted mother too tired to play. I opened the bottom drawer of the kitchen cabinet, my memory drawer, as I called it, and pulled out the small box of keepsakes I'd saved over the years. Claire's report cards, crayon drawings, school photos. And beneath them, the letters. Letters I'd written to Claire on nights when I worked late, explaining why I wasn't there to tuck her in. Letters full of love and guilt and promises to do better. Letters I'd left by her bedside, never knowing if she'd read them or simply tossed them aside. I picked up the phone and dialed Martha's number. Claire's neighbor was my only reliable connection to my granddaughter's life. "Patricia," she answered warmly. "How was the school event?" It was. I hesitated, unsure how to describe the emotional minefield I'd navigated. Complicated. Claire wasn't happy to see me there. Martha sighed. "I was afraid of that. I'm sorry if I caused trouble by taking Emma to deliver that invitation." "No, I'm grateful you did," I assured her. "I just wish I understood why Claire hates me so much. What have I done that's so unforgivable?" 2 weeks passed without a word from Claire. I called once, leaving a careful voicemail asking about Emma's ballet practice, but received no response. The silence wasn't new, we'd gone months without speaking before, but this time it felt heavier, more deliberate. I spent most days puttering around my house, tending to my small garden and volunteering at the community center twice a week. But my thoughts constantly drifted to Emma's question, "Why does Mommy say you're evil?" The words had lodged themselves in my heart like splinters. Friday afternoon, I decided to clean out the attic, a task I'd been postponing for years. If Claire wouldn't let me be part of her present, I could at least organize the artifacts of our past. The attic was stifling, dust particles dancing in the beams of sunlight that filtered through the small window. Cardboard boxes labeled in my neat handwriting lined the walls: Claire, elementary; Claire, middle school; Robert's things. I opened the box containing Robert's belongings, something I rarely allowed myself to do. His watch still stopped at 10:17, the moment his heart gave out. A few ties. The leather wallet, worn at the edges. And beneath them, a stack of unpaid bills and loan notices I'd discovered after his death, evidence of the financial disaster he'd left behind. I quickly closed the box, unwilling to revisit that painful period. Instead, I turned to a smaller container labeled Nursing, Memorial Hospital. Inside were old ID badges, certificates of recognition, and a few group photos with colleagues I'd once considered family. At the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, I found a leather-bound journal I'd completely forgotten about. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it, recognizing my own handwriting from nearly 3 decades ago. It was the diary I'd kept during Claire's childhood, started in the dark days following Robert's death. I settled onto an old ottoman and began to read. April 15, 1988. Robert has been gone for 3 months now. Claire asked for him again today. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that Daddy is never coming home? The bank called again about the mortgage. I don't know how we'll make it, but I have to find a way. Claire deserves better than this. June 2, 1988. Took an extra shift tonight. Mrs. Landry from next door is watching Claire. I hate leaving her, especially after she cried and clung to my legs, begging me not to go. Walking out that door was the hardest thing I've ever done. But the alternative is losing our home. I keep telling myself this is temporary, that things will get easier. September 8, 1988, Claire's first day of first grade. I swapped shifts so I could walk her to school, but got called in for an emergency at noon. Missed picking her up. Found her sitting with the secretary when I finally arrived, an hour late. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Disappointment and resignation, like she already expected me to fail her. She's only 7. She shouldn't have that look in her eyes. Tears blurred my vision as I flipped through the pages. Year after year of the same struggles, working impossible hours to keep us afloat, missing important moments in Claire's life, the crushing guilt that accompanied every choice. May 10, 1993, Claire's dance recital today. She was a sunflower. I promised I'd be there, but a multi-car pileup had the ER packed. By the time I arrived, it was over. She wouldn't speak to me the whole ride home. I don't blame her. I've lost count of how many promises I've broken. The only promise I've kept is keeping a roof over our heads and food on the table. She's too young to understand that some promises have to take priority over others. December 25, 1994, worked Christmas Eve so we could have today together. Claire seemed surprised when I was actually home this morning. That broke my heart. Used my holiday bonus to get her the bike she wanted. For a moment when she saw it, everything felt worth it. Then I fell asleep during the movie she wanted to watch. She said, "It's okay, Mom. I'm used to it." When did my 12-year-old get so bitter? When did she stop believing in me? The diary continued through Claire's teenage years, growing rebellion, shouting matches, slammed doors. The entries became more sporadic as time went on, but no less painful to read. The final entry was dated June 15, 2000. Claire left for college today. The house feels emptier than I expected. I should be proud, she's going to a good school, has a bright future ahead of her. All those years of sacrifice paid off. But standing in her empty room, I can't help wondering, at what cost? She barely hugged me goodbye. The distance between us seems impossible to bridge now. I did what I had to do to give her a better life, but I lost her in the process. Would it have been different if I'd told her the truth about Robert? About the debts? Would she have understood then why I had to work so much? Too late now, I suppose. Some bridges, once burned, stay ash. I closed the journal, my chest tight with emotion. Every page testified to my love for Claire, my guilt over my absences, my desperate attempts to balance survival with motherhood. Every page showed a truth my daughter had never seen, or had never been allowed to see. I carefully packed the diary into my purse. I didn't know if Claire would ever agree to read it, but at least now I had something tangible to offer her, proof that, despite everything she believed, I had always loved her more than she knew. The following Monday, I decided to take a chance. Claire wouldn't answer my calls, but perhaps I could catch a glimpse of Emma after school. I knew it was borderline inappropriate, lurking near a schoolyard could easily be misinterpreted, but desperation pushed reasonable concerns aside. I parked my car across from Oakwood Elementary, positioning myself where I could see the main entrance without being too obvious. When the dismissal bell rang, I watched children stream out into the arms of waiting parents and onto buses. No sign of Emma or Claire. Just as I was about to leave, I spotted my granddaughter walking alone toward the pickup area, her bright purple backpack bouncing with each step. She looked small among the crowd of children, her blonde hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Claire had never been good at doing hair. I stayed in my car, not wanting to cause a scene if Claire appeared. But the minutes ticked by, and Emma remained alone on the bench, occasionally looking up from her book to scan the parking lot. After 20 minutes, my concern outweighed my caution. I stepped out of the car and crossed the street. Emma spotted me immediately, her face lighting up. "Grandma Patricia," she called, waving enthusiastically. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, settling beside her on the bench. "Are you waiting for your mom?" Emma nodded. "She's always late on Mondays because of her big meeting. Sometimes the neighbor comes instead, but she had a doctor thing today." I frowned. It was nearly 40 minutes after dismissal. "Has she called the school?" No, but it's okay. I'm used to it. The echo of Claire's childhood words sent a chill down my spine. Just then, Emma's face scrunched up in discomfort. She rubbed at her arm, where I noticed a small red mark. "What's wrong, honey?" "My arm is itchy," she said, scratching more intensely. "And my throat feels funny." Alarm bells rang in my head, 40 years of nursing instinct kicking in. "Emma, did you eat anything new today? Or did something sting you?" "Billy brought cupcakes for his birthday," she said, her voice now slightly raspy. "They had strawberries on top. I only had a little bit." My heart dropped. "Are you allergic to strawberries, Emma?" She nodded, eyes widening as breathing clearly became more difficult. "I forgot. Mommy always checks." I immediately went into nurse mode, flagging down a teacher who was supervising dismissal. "This child is having an allergic reaction. She needs an EpiPen immediately. Do you have one in her file?" The young teacher, not Ms. Sanders, looked panicked. I don't know. I'm just covering dismissal duty." "Call the front office now," I instructed firmly. "Tell them Emma Mitchell is having an anaphylactic reaction. I'm her grandmother, Patricia Mitchell, a registered nurse. I'm taking her to the hospital." Without waiting for a response, I scooped Emma into my arms, thankful she was small for her age, and rushed to my car. Her lips were beginning to swell, breathing becoming more labored by the second. "Hang on, sweetheart," I murmured, securing her in the back seat. "Grandma's going to take care of you." The drive to Memorial Hospital, where I'd worked for decades, took only 7 minutes, but felt like hours. I carried Emma directly into the emergency room, bypassing the reception desk. 8-year-old female, anaphylactic reaction to strawberries, approximately 40 minutes post-exposure, I announced to the startled triage nurse, falling back on the clinical language that had been my second language for 40 years. The nurse, young enough to be my granddaughter, quickly assessed Emma's condition and rushed us into a treatment room. Within moments, a doctor administered epinephrine, and additional medications soon followed. As Emma's breathing eased, I finally allowed myself to exhale. I held her small hand, whispering reassurances as the medical team worked. Only then did I think to call Claire. No answer. I left a voicemail, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Claire, it's your mother. Emma had an allergic reaction at school. We're at Memorial Hospital ER. She's going to be fine, but you need to come as soon as you get this." 20 minutes later, Emma was stable, drowsy from the medication but out of danger. I sat beside her bed, smoothing her hair, when Claire burst into the room, wild-eyed and breathless. "Emma," she cried, rushing to the bed. Then, noticing me, her expression hardened. "What are you doing here? What happened?" Before I could answer, the attending physician entered, Dr. Patel, according to her name tag. "Mrs. Mitchell?" "I'm Dr. Patel." "Are you Emma's mother?" "Yes," Claire answered immediately. "Your daughter had a severe allergic reaction, but she's responding well to treatment. We'd like to keep her for a few hours for observation, but she should be able to go home this evening." Claire's face crumpled with guilt. I was in a meeting. My phone was off. "It's fortunate your mother was there," Dr. Patel continued. "Her quick action and medical expertise likely prevented a much more serious outcome." Claire looked at me sharply. "What do you mean, she was there? Where?" Dr. Patel sensed the tension and tactfully excused herself, promising to return soon to check on Emma. Once we were alone, Claire turned to me, her voice low and accusing. "Were you stalking my daughter at school?" The unfairness of her accusation stung. I was hoping to see her, yes. I didn't intend to approach her, but she was sitting alone for nearly 40 minutes after dismissal. Then she started having difficulty breathing. "So you took it upon yourself to bring her to the hospital? Without my permission?" I stared at my daughter in disbelief. She was in anaphylactic shock, Claire. There wasn't time to ask permission. "You should have called me first." "I did call you. Your phone was off. Claire fell silent, the truth of my words hanging heavy between us. She looked at Emma, peacefully sleeping now, her breathing regular and strong. The doctor said your medical expertise made a difference, she finally said, her voice softer. I recognized the symptoms, I acknowledged. After 40 years in emergency medicine, some things become instinct. Claire's shoulders slumped as the fight seemed to drain out of her. She sat heavily in the chair on the opposite side of Emma's bed. Thank you, she whispered, not looking at me. For being there when I wasn't. I reached across the bed, hesitantly placing my hand over hers. To my surprise, she didn't pull away. Claire, I said gently, we need to talk. Really talk. Not just for Emma's sake, but for ours. She finally met my eyes, her expression a complex mixture of gratitude, resentment, and something else I couldn't quite identify. Maybe we do, she admitted quietly. But not here. Not now. I nodded, understanding. When you're ready, I'll be there. As Emma stirred between us, I dared to hope that this crisis, frightening as it had been, might be the catalyst for healing the deep wounds between mother and daughter. A week after Emma's hospitalization, I received a text from Claire. Can you come over Saturday at 2? Emma will be at a friend's birthday party. My heart raced as I read the message. This was it, the conversation we'd been avoiding for decades. I spent the days leading up to Saturday in a state of nervous anticipation, rehearsing what I would say, how I would finally make Claire understand. I brought the diary with me, tucked safely in my purse. If words failed me, perhaps my own written account from those difficult years would reach her. Claire's house was modest but well kept, with a small front yard where Emma's bicycle lay on its side. I stood on the porch for a moment, gathering my courage before ringing the doorbell. Claire opened the door, her expression guarded but not hostile. Come in, she said, stepping aside. I made coffee. The living room was tidy but lived in, with Emma's school projects displayed proudly on the walls. I sat on the couch while Claire brought 2 mugs from the kitchen, placing them on the coffee table between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the ticking of the wall clock the only sound in the room. Thank you for coming, Claire finally said, her voice formal, as if addressing a stranger. I wanted to talk about what happened at the hospital. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. The doctor said Emma could have died if you hadn't been there, she said, her fingers tight around her mug. I've been thinking about that a lot this week. I'm just glad I was there, I replied carefully. Claire looked down at her coffee. Why were you at the school, Mom? Really? The question was pointed, but her tone lacked the usual accusation. I decided complete honesty was the only option. I miss her, I said simply. I miss you both. After Grandparents' Day, when she asked me why you think I'm evil, I just wanted to see her, even from a distance. Claire flinched at the word evil, but didn't deny saying it. I shouldn't have used that word, she conceded. Not to a child, not about her grandmother. But you believe it, I said quietly, not a question but a statement. Claire set her mug down with a sharp click. What I believe is that you chose your career over me. That I was an afterthought in your life. That I spent my childhood with babysitters and neighbors while you were at the hospital saving strangers. The familiar surge of defensiveness rose in me, but I pushed it down. This time, I needed to listen, really listen, to my daughter's pain. I understand why you feel that way, I said. She looked surprised, clearly having expected me to argue. You were a child, I continued. You couldn't have understood the financial realities we faced. And I never fully explained them to you. Claire's eyebrows drew together. What do you mean? I took a deep breath and opened my purse, removing the worn leather diary. There's something I need to show you. Something I should have shared years ago. What is that? My journal, from after your father died. I placed it on the table between us. I kept it during the hardest years, when you were young. Claire stared at the diary but made no move to take it. Why are you showing me this now? Because it contains the truth about why I worked so much. About why I missed recitals and school plays and parent-teacher conferences. I hesitated, then added, about your father. Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing. What about Dad? This was the moment I'd avoided for 30 years. The truth that would either heal us or drive us further apart. When your father died, I began slowly, we weren't just emotionally devastated. We were financially ruined. Claire's expression shifted from suspicion to confusion. What are you talking about? Dad had a good job. Yes, he did. But he also had a gambling problem I didn't discover until after his death. The color drained from Claire's face. That's not true. Dad wouldn't. He remortgaged the house without telling me, I continued gently. Maxed out credit cards, took out personal loans. When he died, I found out we were nearly $200,000 in debt, with creditors threatening to take everything. Claire shook her head in denial, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Every extra shift I took was to keep us from losing our home, I explained. Every holiday I worked was to pay for your school supplies, your dance lessons, your future. I wasn't absent because I didn't care, Claire. I was absent because I was fighting to give you a life your father had nearly destroyed. Why didn't you tell me, she whispered, her voice cracking. Because you adored him, I said, feeling the weight of years lifting as I finally spoke the truth. You were only 6 when he died. Your memories of him were perfect, a loving father who played games and told bedtime stories. I couldn't take that away from you. I couldn't let his failures become your burden. Claire stared at me, tears filling her eyes. So you became the villain instead. It wasn't a conscious choice, I admitted. But yes, I suppose that's what happened. You needed someone to blame for the absences, the missed events, the constant stress. It was easier for that person to be me than the father you'd already lost. She picked up the diary with trembling hands, opening to a random page. I watched her eyes scan the entries, widening as she absorbed words I'd written decades ago, words full of love, exhaustion, and desperate determination to give her a better life than I'd had. All this time, she whispered, looking up at me with new understanding. I thought you didn't want to be with me. That your job was more important. Nothing was more important than you, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Nothing has ever been. Claire closed the diary, her hands resting on its worn cover. I built my entire life around not being like you, she admitted. I swore I'd never make Emma feel the way I felt growing up. And you haven't, I assured her. You're a wonderful mother. Am I? She asked, wiping away a tear. I left her waiting at school for 40 minutes. I turned off my phone during a meeting. If you hadn't been there. Don't, I said firmly. We all make mistakes, Claire. The love is what matters, and Emma knows you love her. 3 months passed since the day Claire read my diary, 3 months of cautious steps toward reconciliation, of awkward conversations and difficult truths. We weren't healed, not completely, but we were trying. And for the first time in decades, I allowed myself to hope. Today was Emma's ballet recital, where she would finally play the butterfly she'd been so excited about. Claire had texted me the details weeks ago, adding, front row seat saved for you, at the end, small words that meant everything. I arrived early, a bouquet of pink roses clutched in my hands. The elementary school auditorium was already filling with parents and grandparents, all armed with cameras and proud smiles. Claire waved from the 3rd row, where she'd saved seats. Mom, over here. The casual use of Mom, rather than my name wasn't lost on me. I made my way through the crowd, settling into the seat beside her. Nervous? I asked, noticing her fidgeting. A little. Emma's been practicing non-stop, but she still struggles with the final turn. Claire smiled ruefully. Gets that from me. I could never master dance either. That's definitely from your father's side, I said, testing the waters of our newly established honesty. The man had 2 left feet. To my relief, Claire laughed. I remember him dancing with me at Cousin Lily's wedding. He kept stepping on my toes. It was the first time she'd mentioned Robert without that idealized reverence, the first sign that she was beginning to see him as a real person, flaws and all. "How are you doing with everything?" I asked carefully. It was a lot to take in. Claire sighed, her gaze fixed on the still-closed curtains. "Some days are harder than others. I still catch myself thinking about Dad the way I always did, then remembering what you told me. It's like grieving him all over again, but differently." I placed my hand over hers. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to cause you more pain. I needed the truth," she said firmly. "Even if it hurts. And in a way, it explains so much, why you were always so careful with money, why you were so adamant about me understanding finances. I wanted you to be protected in ways I wasn't," I admitted. The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the performance. Claire squeezed my hand before letting go. "She's going to be so happy you're here." Emma's class was third in the program, a fluttering formation of second graders in sparkly butterfly wings. When Emma spotted us in the audience, her face lit up with a smile so radiant it brought tears to my eyes. She performed her routine with determination, wobbling slightly on the final turn but finishing with a proud bow. Claire and I applauded wildly, both of us on our feet. In that moment, we weren't estranged mother and daughter carrying decades of misunderstandings. We were simply two people who loved the same little girl. After the recital, we took Emma for ice cream, a tradition Claire had apparently established after every performance. Watching my daughter and granddaughter together, Emma's animated chatter, Claire's attentive responses, I felt a surge of gratitude so intense it nearly overwhelmed me. "Grandma, did you see my spin?" Emma asked, ice cream smeared around her mouth. "I did, sweetheart. You were magnificent. Mom helped me practice every night," she said, glancing adoringly at Claire. "Even when she was tired from work." Claire wiped Emma's face with a napkin, her expression softening. "Everyone makes time for what matters, right, Mom?" The deliberate echo of our recent conversations wasn't lost on me. "Absolutely," I agreed, my throat tight with emotion. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected call from Claire on a Wednesday evening. "Mom? I know it's last minute, but I have an emergency meeting tomorrow. Could you pick Emma up from school and watch her until I get home around 7? The casual way she asked, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for a grandmother to watch her granddaughter, nearly made me drop the phone. "Of course," I managed. "I'd love to." "Great. I'll let the school know you're authorized for pickup." She paused, then added, "Emma's been asking when she could visit your house anyway." The next day, Emma bounded into my car with the limitless energy of an 8-year-old, chattering about her day and the science project she was working on. At home, I showed her the small changes I'd made to the spare bedroom: new bedding with butterflies, a shelf with books I thought she might enjoy, a desk for homework or drawing. "Is this my room?" she asked, eyes wide. "When you visit," I said carefully. "If that's okay with you and your mom." Emma threw her arms around my waist. "It's perfect. Can we make cookies?" We spent the afternoon baking, flour dusting every surface including our hair. I taught her my secret recipe, the same one I'd tried to teach Claire years ago, during one of my rare days off that had ended in tears and slammed doors. When Claire arrived to pick her up, she surveyed the kitchen disaster with amusement rather than criticism. "Had fun, I see." "We made cookies," Emma announced proudly. "Grandma says the secret is using brown butter." "Brown butter, huh?" Claire raised an eyebrow at me. "You never told me that." "I tried," I said softly. "You weren't ready to hear it then." Understanding passed between us, an acknowledgement that we were both in different places now, both finally ready to listen. As they were leaving, Claire hesitated at the door. "Mom, we're having a small birthday dinner for Emma next Saturday. Just us, really. Would you like to come?" "I'd be honored," I said, meaning every word. "Good." She smiled, a real smile, without the tension that had characterized our interactions for so long. Emma wants to show you her science project when it's finished anyway. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the sweet aroma of cookies and the lingering warmth of family. The house no longer felt empty. The silence no longer echoed with regret. A month later, I sat in the audience at Emma's school, watching a special presentation for Grandparents' Day, a different one than the event that had started this journey of reconciliation. On stage, Emma stood confidently at the microphone. For my presentation, I interviewed the most important women in my life, my mom and my grandma. I learned that my grandma was a nurse who saved lots of people, and that she worked really hard to take care of my mom when she was little. My eyes found Claire in the row ahead of me. She turned slightly, giving me a small smile over her shoulder. My mom told me that sometimes people make mistakes when they're hurt or don't understand things, Emma continued. But what matters is that we learn to listen and forgive each other. I blinked back tears as Emma proudly held up a poster titled, 3 Generations of Strong Women. On it were photos of all 3 of us, separately and together, surrounded by words like courage, perseverance, and love. As applause filled the auditorium, I realized that Emma had given me something precious, something I'd thought lost forever. Not just a relationship with my granddaughter, but a second chance with my daughter. Later that evening, as the 3 of us walked to the car together, Emma skipping ahead, Claire leaned close to me. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. Even when I pushed you away. Even when I was cruel." I took her hand, squeezing gently. "That's what mothers do. We keep showing up, keep loving, keep hoping, even when it breaks our hearts." Claire nodded, her eyes shining. "I'm beginning to understand that now." Ahead of us, Emma turned and called impatiently, "Come on, slowpokes. Grandma promised to show me how to make lasagna tonight." Claire and I exchanged glances, both of us smiling at her enthusiasm. "We're coming," Claire called back. Then, softly to me, "We're both coming." As we walked together toward my granddaughter, I felt the weight of decades lift from my shoulders. The path to healing wasn't complete, there would still be difficult conversations, painful memories, moments of doubt. But for the first time in 30 years, we were walking it together. And that made all the difference.